All right, so yeah, Anchor Panic time again, lads. So we just got that new Abyss Alicia update, right? Like Alternate Alicia finally dropped, the CN info kind of lined up, and the meta shifted a tiny bits, but not like completely flipped. So I've been playing around with teams the last couple of days, trying the lightning cores, quantum mixes, all that, and I figured let's just talk through a fresh tier list for this new meta. I'm gonna keep it simple, right? Just S+, S, A, B, C. And I'm only gonna talk about operators that actually matter long term, like no early game filler, no trash talk, just the units that feel worth investing in if you actually plan to play the game for a while. So yeah, let's start. So the first one is the new unit, Abyss Alicia. And this unit is actually kind of cracked if you play it properly. So Abyss Alicia is Lightning Striker, right? But not the usual press button and forget. There's this whole Abyss Echo state where when you go into it, you kind of have to follow a proper skill cycle. If you mess up the order, the damage drops, but if you follow the flow, the energy burst gets way stronger and incoming damage gets reduced while that state is up. And then there's that talent where as long as another teammate is alive, Abyss Alicia just refuses to die, which is super comfy for hard content. Plus, the signature sigil Future Me is actually really important. It gives defense shred on enemies and just boosts attacks so the whole kit hits harder. So yeah, the only downside is that it's not a brain-off unit. You can't just spam skills, you kind of have to respect the cycle, but once you do, the damage is really, really good. For me, that's like clean S-tier lightning DPS. From there, I kind of have to mention Turn because, yeah, nothing in this game feels the same once you pull Turn. So, Turn is quantum support, right? But not just some little buffer. This unit is basically the engine of so many teams. Turn boosts offensive stats, adds skill damage, and makes your actual DPS units look way more meta than they are on paper. The silly part is Turn doesn't even need crazy ascensions to start doing work. Even at low stars, the passive damage increase is just there 24/7. On full quantum teams, Turn is obvious, but honestly, you can drop Turn into random comps and still feel the value. So yeah, I'm not even going to overcomplicate that. Turn is straight S+ tier buffer, probably the best long-term pull in the whole game. Okay, yeah, since we're already high up, let me bounce over to Karenissa for a second. Karenissa is Lightning Striker, but in the assassin role. This unit sits in the back and just deletes priority targets with single target bursts. And then the fun part is the energy burst can be recast every time a target gets executed. Once you get that 3-star ascension that removes the damage penalty on the recasts, Karenissa starts looping these bursts and it feels actually dirty on bosses. In the CN or future meta stuff, Karenissa is still considered one of the best DPS units in the game, even with more characters added, which is pretty telling. And on a full Lightning lineup with Ling and later Lightning supports, Karenissa is just the main carry. So yeah, that's an easy S+ tier unit for me. Let's jump off Lightning and go back into Quantum for a second with Lulira. Lulira is that we're not wiping button. Quantum healer and shielder. Best healing and shielder unit in the game right now. Easily. So, Lulira gives big shields, consistent healing, and once you unlock the 3 and 6-star ascensions, there's even a revive once per battle, which is stupid good for mistake runs. On full quantum, Lulira is basically mandatory, but even on mixed teams, that shielding plus revive just keeps runs alive that would normally fail. So yeah, sustain is boring, but it wins games. I'd put Lulira solidly in S+ tier as your main healer shielder pick. Alright, so while we're still talking top supports, I gotta mention Echo too. Echo is lightning support, breaker, and kind of an all-in-one tool. Echo buffs team damage, can AoE heal, and has an AoE attack that can silence enemies, which is actually broken in certain fights where you just don't want skills going off. Now, Echo does scale pretty hard with Ascensions. The best passives are locked at 3-star and 6-star, so the unit starts good and ends up stupid strong if you invest. But once you're there, Echo is just one of the most complete supports in the game. For me, it's a clean S+ tier support, right under Turn in terms of pure value. Okay, let me pivot down just a tiny bit to what I'd call S tier, so still amazing, just not as plug and play. One of the first ones that comes to mind is Langguao. Langguao is Ice, Stun class, and basically the CC King. This unit can freeze entire groups and stack freezing, which in PvP especially is just disgusting. Because the energy burst is doing the main control and damage, you can actually use Langguao at 0 ascension and it still feels strong.
On full ice teams, Langwao is almost mandatory, but you can also slot it into mixed comps when you need reliable CC. So yeah, I'd put Langwao in S tier, super high priority if you like ice or PvP. Then you've got Rose, who I think is one of the most slept on physical units. So Rose is Breaker, physical hybrid DPS plus support. Good AoE damage, but the important part is the buff plus debuff package. Rose can buff ally attack and then also reduce enemy defense and physical resistance, which is massive if you're running units like Raven or Yan. On full physical teams, Rose honestly feels close to S+, but because it's a bit more specialized, I'd stick it in S tier overall. If you're building physical, this is like a must build. Another big one is Grenache. Grenache is fire support hybrid. This unit can stack burn, give lifesteal to allies whenever they attack burned enemies, and also just stack its own lifesteal and DPS to stay alive forever. It's AoE, it's tanky, and it makes fire comps way more stable. With 6-star, you get the best lifesteal talents, but even before that, it's very solid. I'd call Grenache a very safe S-tier support for fire and mixed teams. And then we've got the Quantum tank duo, Dione and Antelope, but I'll start with Dione. Dione is a natural defender that acts like a true tank support. Heals, shields, and defense buffs for the team. Once you unlock 3 and 6-star ascensions, there's extra shield effects when Dione drops low, which makes the unit really hard to replace when you're used to that safety. And Antelope is like the quantum mirror of that, leaning more into quantum synergy, but doing the same kind of shields, heals, and defensive buffs. For quantum lineups early on, Antelope is one of the best frontliners you can get. Both of these for me sit in S tier as top tanker supports, depending on your element. Oh, and I don't want to ignore the quantum support trio like Delling, Centaura, and Ifrit, but I'll keep it short. Delling is a really strong SR buffer that stacks radiation, buffs attack and defense, and because it's SR, getting the 6-star ascension is way easier. Super good for PvE, especially early quantum cores. Centaura's is another quantum SR that does AoE healing, debuff cleanse, and damage buffs. A lot of people actually rate Centaura over Lulira for certain PvE setups because it's easier to max out. And Ifrit is quantum support that buffs energy burst damage and reduces quantum resistance on enemies. With the signature sigil, you get even more resistance red plus crit damage. Super flexible, can even act as a mini sub DPS depending on models. All 3 of those I'd group in S tier for people actually building quantum heavy teams. Alright, let's move down into A tier, which is still very strong but a bit more team dependent. First one that always comes up is Merlot. Merlot is Fire Striker, core fire DPS. This unit gets stronger based on burn stacks on enemies, and once you hit 4 or more burn stacks, you're getting up to like 60% crit rate and a bunch of other stat buffs. AoE fire damage, great scaling, but it needs a proper burn team behind it, stuff like Sparkwing, Neon, Yuyanya, etc. On a full fire team, Merlot feels way higher than A, but in general, I'd say Merlot is a strong 8-tier DPS that becomes fake S tier on the right setup. Then you've got Marceline, one of the best fire supports. So Marceline stacks tier, which increases fire damage taken right enemies like 10% per stack. With Ascensions and the Signature Sigil, you get over 50% of the unit's real potential unlocked. That Signature Sigil especially is crazy good. Paired with Merlot, Marceline takes your fire team's damage from good to, wait, what happened to the boss? But again, it needs the red investment. So yeah, I'd keep Air Marceline at A tier, but very high 8. For physical, you've got Raven and Yan. Raven is your single target physical DPS, percent HP damage and ignore defense and block make it really solid on bosses. Yan is more of your AoE physical wave clearer. And together with Rose, those 3 pretty much define physical right now. I'd put Raven and Yan both in A tier with a note that on full physical teams they feel higher. For Ice, you've got Yukili and Abyssal as a nice little duo. Yukili is mostly single target DPS with stacking buffs that make longer fights better. At Ascension 3, Blood Hunting becomes AoE, which is a massive spike. It's not as absurd as some rate up DPS units, but with the right build, Yukili keeps up fine. And Abyssal is like the ice support / AoE DPS. Reduces enemy ice resistance, buffs ally ice damage, and doesn't need insane investment to start doing its job. You put Abyssal next to Yukili and Langwao, and suddenly your ice team looks real. Both of these for me, I'd keep in mid-high A tier. And then kind of the interesting one for the future is Dalaran. Dalaran's a natural striker, single target, and the whole kit revolves around crits and extra turns. The unit can gain an extra turn buff and just stack damage over and over, and it sits really well with natural-themed builds. The issue right now is natural does not have crazy supports, so it feels like Dalaran is ready, but the team isn't, so at this moment I'd call Dalaran a strong A tier with S as plus potential once proper natural supports show up. So yeah, Yeah, that's kind of how I see it after playing around with the update and re-looking at this tier list stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.